Thinking of home with its pleasant and happy memories can make us stronger during our present and future days here upon the earth. President Benson has always loved his childhood home. He loved going back and visiting with family members still there, and seeing the friends of his birth, his neighbors, his teachers, his bishops, his kin, who had such an important impact on his life. There is a certain kind of yearning for home we should never want to lose.
I honestly can say I love Grass Valley.
I don't know that I can point to any one thing, but certainly part of it has to do with the people who are here and who shared their life and their love with us.
We found a lot of dedicated people and wonderful people that we identified with.
We loved the small town atmosphere. We loved the sense of community.
That's my wonderful place. That's my home in my heart.
The heritage that I'm privileged to have.
There's a road that will lead me home.
My name is Loretta Gray. We have been here a long time. The first cottage meetings and ward began in my grandmother's home. Well, my earliest meetings was during the Second World War, and they had moved several times into different lodge halls and had become a ward by then. The lodge halls always smelled. There were spittoons around that had to be emptied, and cigarette butts and cigar butts and all kinds of things that had to be cleaned up and moved out of sight and what have you before Sunday morning services began. And that was, my family was one that got busy and took care of all of that.
In those early days, and I'm talking about the 1930s, they were just meeting where they could. But eventually, they did purchase the property on Alta Hill.
Fundraising, we used to pick cherries and do all kinds of things. Sometimes we went to work at 4 or 5 in the morning to pick fruit and then on to school.
It was a building that was built when the church didn't have so much money, and they proceeded to take apart a building that had the old square nails, and so it was made entirely with square nails.
In those years, we actually had hands-on. The men would go and help dig foundations and tie wire and do all those kind of heavy things. And then as the building progressed, the women would do the painting and cleaning up and picking up. And I can remember scraping paint off of windows and painting the window frames and things like that, and staining the benches. And they were wooden benches, no padding. It was a true sweat labor equity situation.
I know that in 1948 in September, I was the first baby blessed there. We went there, and for so many years, went there my whole childhood. Went to seminary there before we went over to high school at Nevada Union. Then I had a wedding reception there.
But I didn't come there until 1957, and we had a downstairs. The downstairs was the junior Sunday school and the primary. And if you were little, you had to walk down these horrible stairs. And the furnace was also in the basement. And we'd tell the little kids that they had to be really reverent when they walked down the stairs, because there was a dragon that lived in the basement. And once in a while, the heater would click on and make this horrendous noise. And it was a dragon. That was our dragon.
My wife and I, Harveen, moved here
in the mid-60s. We immediately became acquainted with a lot of wonderful people in the church. I have two reoccurring memories that come back to my remembrance most often, and one of those involves Glenn Sanders and his family, what vitality they brought into the ward through both drama and music.
You know, Brother Sanders certainly had a tremendous amount of dedication as he was there, and Sister Sanders, and helped all the people perform and put on great performances for the community. And I think it was just a wonderful opportunity, great opportunity for involvement.
One year we did the production of Babes in Toyland, and that was fun, and everyone participated. I think in the Babes in Toyland, the entire ward was performed in it one way or another.
It was part of the 4th of July celebration for both communities, Nevada City and Grass Valley. A huge community involvement, very well done. It was fun to be part of. It was great.
The other memory that I have is of Bishop J. Harris, and he had such a wonderful smile and was Christ-like in his manner and his way of teaching or encouraging. I'm a dentist, and I had a patient who was somewhat of a worldly nature, worked on the freeway when it was being built here years ago, and I was talking to him one of the times he came in for some work, and he said, "You know, that Harris guy, he is some kind of fellow." He said, "I can come to work feeling awful." And the first thing he did is gives you one of those big smiles, and it makes your whole day. He said, "I forget that I've got troubles." He had such a warmth and a smile about him. But anyway, that's the kind of a person he was.
From my early days in my youth, I remember strong individuals, people like the Harris family, who were just so active and so nice and so involved and so genuine. I know my father and my mother looked to their leadership and constancy as strengthening them and kind of helped us become who we are.
Another person that meant a lot to me was Sarah Harris, and she was always there. And she was fun to be around, but she had the gospel side of her that she could bring that out in me.
I remember the example of President Hamilton, who was our stake president. I remember often seeing him, for example, caring for the elderly, people he home taught. And even though he was a stake president and an important hospital administrator, I still remember his example as he went over to, I can't remember the family's name, but a family who lived on Ridge Road. And he would go over there and kind of take care for their yard and be a very diligent servant. Something I remember and cherish.
Pearl Cantrell was my MyMaid advisor. I do not remember anything she taught me, but I knew that she loved me. And I loved her. And she helped me to know the importance of a temple marriage.
When I was bishop, I got well acquainted with a lot of people that were earlier here in the church. And there were extremely dedicated people.
I just realized that these are good, down-to-earth people. It was obvious that they were good members of the church.
In the olden days of the church on Alta Street, you did not talk about anyone because they were all related. You had the Grays, the Staleys, the Ivies, the Harrises, and the Monahans. And all of the young girls were going to grow up and marry Jerry Harris. Well, he never married any of us.
We kind of felt like a family, and we were always doing things together. We'd go to the river and swim. We would have parties at one place or another. We'd just go meet at the back of the church and have watermelon.
We were all church friends, and we went to school together, and we really didn't date. We just hung out as church members, and that was a very good, fun time. And that's when I really appreciated the gospel, and that's when I started developing a testimony.
What a great opportunity we had. You know, even though I was kind of young, and actually naive and young, not even a member of the church, had the blessing of participating in the church, going to seminary, involved with the youth activities, the scout activities, all those things that really make for strength in the church.
Eventually, it was obvious that the building just was not big enough for such a big ward.
In 1974, they purchased property in Nevada City to build the church that exists now.
In those days, I believe they had to raise a significant portion of the funds. And I know my father, who was not a member of the church, he was very appreciative of the influence the church was on my family. And I think of, so he was influenced positively to the point that he was willing to share and contribute, just like all the many families who contributed to help make these things happen.
When it's being built, I said, what about some way of making it a little more personal to us? And he said, yeah, we could work something in. I said, well, we've got a quartz area in our locality, and it's beautiful quartz, and it would sure be nice to have the background behind the podium in that quartz. And so he said, well, if you can arrange to have people bring it down and split it up or break it up, then I'll have it put up. So in our present chapel, we have a reminder of some of our earlier people, because that mine where it came from was one of the places where the Mormon battalion camped as they came through here in the way early years.
We had such good activities that really took advantage of this beautiful surroundings. A lot of scout activities involved scouting, going to the mountains, all those kinds of things that made it so unique here to a place to raise a family, strengthen our testimonies, and become more acquainted with the body of the saints.
The same year that I was called to be camp director, the Stake Young Women's Presidency told me that they would like to have summiteer hike then. Now it's high adventure.
For girls.
And I had never backpacked before, but I knew Jim had. And so I thought, okay, if he can go, because I knew I had to have 2 priesthood brethren to go with me. I got through the first year and loved the next 10 years of it, so.
I have loved the faithfulness of the members up here. I served for 5 years as the bishop of the Nevada City Ward, and during that time I interacted quite closely with brethren who were in the Penn Valley Ward and the Grass Valley Ward, and the other bishops, of course. And some of the wards were kind of struggling in terms of the number of people that they had, and yet the people that were attending were so faithful. so faithful. And I remember talking to a couple of bishops and saying, how do you deal with all the challenges that you have? And they had such great faith and such great determination. The faithful members of the church are just outstanding.
There are several people in the wards, the 5 wards now, who I knew growing up who were not members of the church, as I was not, and now they are. It's great to see that happening, to know that, yeah, the gospel's real and it's spreading and we're part of it.
Talking about my testimony, it's hard to put into words the feelings that I have inside. I was just so happy to be part of the Grass Valley experience.
I was just taught the gospel and it felt right to me and I always accepted it. That is the area and the time in which I feel like I gained so much strength. But on my own then, of course, I needed to develop the testimony where I knew it to be true for myself.
It's been such a blessing. The church has been such a blessing in my life and the life of my family. That I know the gospel's true. I know that these kinds of things, this dedication doesn't just happen. It happens because people have testimonies, because they're willing to serve and willing to make things happen.
I am grateful that I am now active in the church, that I have a testimony of the gospel, and there's really no other place that I would want to be.
As the scripture reminds us, where much is given, much is required, and we've been greatly blessed in this area. As we act on our faith in Jesus Christ, we'll build on the foundation of those who went before us to provide a place of defense and refuge for those who wish happiness and joy in their lives and have a hope in eternal life to come.